Uh, no, I want to record these so that folks who either were not able to sign up or maybe unable to make it for whatever reason can come through and kind of follow along these workshops. So this will be the first workshop of 4, I believe, kind of around, thank you for bringing this up, the San Jose Story Map, different suites of skills acquisitions, all related to content or kind of platforms that students can utilize to deliver submissions for the San Jose Story Map, and then an auxiliary or a sister project, Wish You Were Here, which is a correspondence exhibition. So students can develop designs for postcards and submit those designs for a competition. 10 unique designs will be printed and available for distribution from the Thompson Gallery and a kiosk that Kohar Scott in the design department is working with students to design. And then 4 designs, front and back, will be printed as kind of unique art objects to be taken away, kind of like a Felix Gonzalez Torres takeaway project. And then 1 postcard will be printed, I think, with our nonprofit postage, so they can be mailed out, but it will be completely blank. So users or kind of participants, community members can submit both a design side and kind of a text contribution. So,
and there will be, Kohar is giving a workshop around the idea she's working with her students from the industrial design department for that mobile unit. And myself and Adrian Defendi, a graduate student in the MFA department. I'm trying to bring myself back to being a graduate student and being 40 again. That would be, yeah. But, so if anyone wants to learn more about those or develop those skills, that'll be offered too.
Awesome. Thank you, Robin. Okay, so we are recording this. Kerry, I will fade into the background and let you take it away.
Thank you. Well, thanks everyone for spending a few hours this evening just looking into some of the software that's available to SJSU students and faculty. It's very exciting to introduce people who have potentially not used mapping software before to some of the opportunities that you can work with for many disciplines. So I'm Kerry Rohrmeier. I'm in the Department of Urban and Regional Planning. I came there as a geographer. So I've been at San Jose State for 7 years. We used to have a department of geography. We don't anymore, but it's the preeminent interdisciplinary science. And I think a lot of people don't realize that you can do social science, physical science, a combination thereof. And geographic information science is the technology that really is the thread through all of these disciplines, but also it's so exciting because in the last few years with story mapping, it has introduced the art and the digital humanities into our discipline and us into your discipline as well. So I'm a cultural landscape researcher. I've studied Burning Man for a very long time, but also just interested in humans and their interaction with the desert. So I'm a qualitative researcher. Most GIS professionals are quantitative scientists. So for me, I've often felt like, oh, I'm sort of unusual, but I think that lends this workshop really well because I'm interested in seeing the kinds of content that the people here have created and how you can use this in a totally different way. So I like to look at the landscape, but more than anything, my whole life, I've loved maps. Anybody else here a map enthusiast? Yeah, okay, great. So cartography is both a science and an art. It has a long history. These are the Swiss-Austrian hand-drawn maps of the Alps are some of the most spectacular maps ever created. But today, mapping is done in a more technological framework. So we use platforms where we integrate 2 dimensions, 3 dimensions. It's now the science of where, so everything is location-based. And of course, the world has changed since everyone has the advent of a smartphone carrying around in their pocket. There's just a tremendous amount of data to pull from. So what's great about ArcGIS and that a lot of other competitors don't have is that it works across operating systems. It works across devices. So you could be doing this on your tablet. You could be doing this on your module at home. You could be doing this on a laptop. You could also be doing it on your smartphone. Some of the other operating options are either one or the other. It integrates all kinds of media, works really well with AutoCAD, SketchUp, if you use those tools. It also works well with illustrated creations and photographs and videos and audio clips and data science. So I love being a geographer probably more than anything because it gets me outside of a studio, office, or a cubicle, and I love being in the field. And so with the advent of satellite technology, you can be getting real-time data capture and running analytics while you're there. So as a scientist, I'm all about data. And so I've been thinking and been very inspired by what I've been learning about the San Jose Story Map and the postcard project. And I've actually created a couple of samples based on my understanding. So hopefully I won't insult the project, but rather give you some ideas. And the greatest thing about mapping is we're just experiencing this utter resurgence, and these careers are in high demand, especially here in the Bay Area. My students are getting excellent jobs out of San Jose State. But I want to remind people that maps don't always have to take these very specific forms. They can be a total reinterpretation or recontextualization of how we understand place and moving through place. And it can change our complete worldview about how to communicate visually. So I always hope that working with humanities and the arts that I get that sort of inspiration and creativity. Now tonight's workshop is in 4 parts. We're going to do a little get everybody on the program just to make sure you know how to use the buttons. But then we're going to be doing a web map. And then the third part is to create a story map where you use the web map from exercise 2. And then the last part of the session is that you can create, there's free time for you to create your own story map and just like open lab time. Most people, I would imagine by now, are comfortable with a layer-based environment because of Google Maps or because of AutoCAD or Illustrator or Photoshop. Here, the stack is entirely based on latitude and longitude. So it's very accurate representations of place. Maybe you're all familiar with this map. How often have you used it? Probably not too frequently. You may be in a pinch, but there's some real challenges with the static map anymore. One, this assumes a lot of knowledge. If I don't know what CYB is, there's no sense of what this place is. It does communicate access well, and it is an informational document, but there are a lot of problems with it. So like many people, I refer to Google Maps to get somewhere because I can pull it up on my phone and I can zoom in and it's dynamic. But this is something created by a corporation based largely on algorithm and machine learning. So it doesn't know place as well as the people who are actually students and community members of San Jose. So what we want to do in essence is use the technology to weave layers together and create something that's much more informative and much more personalized. So the first exercise, and you'll see there's a link at the bottom. So all of the slides are available, and there's a step-by-step instructional document that goes along with tonight's workshop. Pull that up and then get yourself logged into ArcGIS. So this first segment is just getting familiar with the map features.
Sorry, Kerry, so you want us to get the GIS up and what else?
Oh, let me see. Did you not? My link is gone. Let me throw the link in the chat. And there are step-by-step instructions for this evening. Go ahead and pull that Google Doc up, and then you will see a home page that looks like this.
And how far through the instructions?
Sorry, let me just stop sharing there so I can see you all. So the first segment is to just get through exercise 1. I'll give you a quick overview, and then we'll spend up just about 10 minutes. You should be able to get through that. So ArcGIS Online, this is the homepage where you can log in, sign in. You've all received information from Jennifer Red, who is our eCampus technology director, and she handles all the licensing. You are entitled to free software as much as you need, as long as you are affiliated with the university. This is very expensive software if you were to have to buy it yourself. Be sure to always ask for publisher level access. That gives you the full suite of tools. And tonight we'll be working with the ArcGIS Online function and also the story maps, which you see here. So once you log in, those will be available to you. Right now we'll be working with the map tab. Is everyone able to log in?
I'm working on it right now, almost there.
Okay, great.
At the map tab, sorry, I've got so many windows open, and it's asking if I want to open map viewer beta.
No, we're just going to use the traditional.
Okay, cool.
Is that the one, does it open up just to the United States with Canada and Mexico? It's just, is that?
Yeah, if you are using the beta viewer, that's fine. The tools are pretty much the same. But at this point, we just want to make sure everybody is in the software. Okay, so you are likely looking at a map interface that looks like this. There's some information on the left. That's going to be exercise 2. But for now, I want you to explore features like finding, searching for the university, measuring, looking for directions, and just zooming in and out. Some basic functions.
You know, I don't have those same options. I'm in map and it's got the instructions 1, 2, 3, 4 on the left as yours, but I'm not seeing. Do you have to go under? Oh, I see measurements.
Mm-hmm.
And what are the other ones? Measurements.
There's directions, measurements. There's a search bar. There is also just a zoom in and out function.
The measurement's amazing. Oh, hello. It's great. And Robin, if you do like a search in the little search bar next to measurement, it can bring you into a more localized view. So I duplicated Kerry's search for San Jose State University. And it brought
I see.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Hmm.
And are they building on top of like an OpenStreetMaps, or do you know, is this proprietary?
Typically, so ArcGIS has a long partnership with Digital Globe. They're one of the largest base map providers, but now there's Planet and OpenStreetMap is, you can choose an OpenStreetMap base map. I have mixed feelings about using OpenStreetMap because it's crowdsourced. Ideologically, I love it.
Yeah, complicated economics and politics, right? Yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm. And I'm looking at this add function and like add layer from web. Is there like a library of layers?
This is a very good
Sorry.
transition. I'll give everyone another 2 minutes just to get through this first component. You have all the information should you ever need to come back to it. But yes, part 2, we're going to talk about adding data.
So Kerry, why when I'm measuring it is it keeps telling me 0 square miles?
Are you measuring an area that is very large or very
No,
small?
small, yeah.
So
That's
you have
why.
the option of choosing feet, or you have the option of choosing a smaller scale.
Oh yeah, yeah, thanks.
Was everyone able to find the base map function in choosing a different base map from imagery to grayscale or a topo map? That's probably one of the best features you'll use in ArcGIS is picking the base map that serves your purpose. So we're going to go ahead and get into the web mapping part. So again, we're going to use the same viewer to add data layers so that you can create a map that's meaningful based on what your needs are. And from that, then you'll have something that you can embed into a story map. So lesson 2 here is just a little bit about cartography and then adding data 4 different ways. So like many things that are visual, you have to be very specific in what the purpose is. So when you're creating a map, you literally have access to hundreds of thousands of data layers. It's very tempting, and students are notorious for just cluttering the map with every possible cool thing they can find on the internet. But I'm always telling them, peel it back, really honing in on who the audience is and designing a map appropriate for that audience. Ideally, everybody would be the audience, but we know that that isn't true. So some things that must be sort of hallmarks of mapping and cartography that's different from other visual arts is that location must be absolute and accurate. So this is not a fictional assignment, but rather location is what unifies mapping. And it's very, very easy with statistical data to be tempted, and you see this often with political maps, how you choose to shade by scale, how you choose to shade by classifying data into different groups can tell a very different story. So being ethical in the representations, particularly with color choice, is really important to cartography. So it's just some fundamental rules, but if I were only to impart one piece of wisdom, it's to keep it simple. Just keep it simple, and then it's always clear. So you are going to be getting data a few different ways. First, or maybe second on your exercise, is to browse the Living Atlas. There are nearly 5,000 layers already available to you inside ArcGIS Online. There are also layers which you're going to be using a free data layer from the city of San Jose, because they have an open data portal, which many agencies do. You will also be digitizing a point, a line, and a polygon, so creating your own layers. And then lastly, there's a creation of a spreadsheet where you will do some geocoding. So you take data in a spreadsheet, you add the latitude and longitude coordinates, and then you are visibly able to bring it into your ArcMap. And that's most easily done if you're working with a small data set using Google Maps. You can click anywhere, it will show you the coordinates, and you just literally copy paste. I like I like Google Sheets because there are ways to set automated paths so that can automatically upload and visualize your information. We work in a CSV, a comma separated value. This is all in the step-by-step instructions, but here we'll be working in the content and again in the map viewer. And you're going to get to the point in exercise 2 where you create a stick pin and you add an image and you can add additional information. So this is step 2. This is called creating a web map. So I'll leave a bit longer. We'll have more time to work on. This is the most important section of tonight's workshop. The story mapping is easy.
Sorry, how do we get to the content tab on the homepage? Do we exit out of our map?
Kerry, you're muted.
Apologies. Yeah, just go back to ArcGIS at the top, and then it will bring you back to that homepage where there's a content tab.
Thanks.
Kerry, would it be at all possible to follow you?
Yes.
Admitting all, I'm dyslexic, so trying to follow your directions and getting back and forth, and then there may be others that have this thing. So to have both up at once, I'd rather have another monitor. So would it be possible to follow your trajectory?
Sure. Yes, this is really an exercise that works well with 2 monitors.
Yeah.
And in a lab setting.
Yeah.
Those days very much.
Because I kept going back and forth, and then by the time I find the, yeah.
Yeah, I always minimize and then do side by side. And let me share my screen and I'll walk you through. So when I share, I'm not able to see more than one file. So I'll show you how to add. You'll have to ping me on what I need to add. So here you're looking at your home page. You should have quite a lot of content by the time the evening's done. And then as you continue to use ArcGIS, you'll develop much more content than you may ever need. So it will end up in the content tab, but most everything you do happens here in the map tab. So Robin, what function would you like me to demonstrate? What part of the exercise?
Any part of it, or just swim through it, and then maybe there's others too that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm with Robin on this one.
Okay. This is good. This is really good. This teaching Zoom lab style is so different. Okay, so let's start by, if you just want to add a map note, we'll start with the most basic functions. Map notes are ways to digitize or create new layers. So let's create let's find San Jose State. Okay. Now I'm going to put a stick pin right there, and then you'll see there's ample opportunities to add content. So and let's see, I have content that lives in my content folder that I'm just going to put a link.
So when you say the content, so in the link area, do you have to have all the links already populated in the content area, or how does that work?
Yes or no. If you're the section 3, when we talk about story mapping, I spend some time. It's always nice if you're very organized and have everything already preloaded into content. There are other ways to do it, like upload as you go, but hopefully you have everything already in place and then you can just pull from that. So let me see, I have a buildings image. And then you can just copy the URL and put it in place.
So Kerry, I think we're only seeing the SJ, like the story map window. So if there's things that you're pulling up on top of it, we're actually not seeing that.
No, I was just pulling up my URL for my image. So some of you will be using images from, say, Flickr, or you may be using images from put it in a cloud storage somewhere. You can use ArcGIS's storage. So wherever you keep your imagery or media, if it's electronic, just use that URL.
Got
Okay.
it. So,
It always has to point to somewhere. It can't be on your desktop. It's got to be in Google folders or something in the cloud, correct?
That's true. That's correct.
And then if it's something you've uploaded to content, where do you see the URL for it?
Oh, it is okay, let me go to content. If you have already uploaded it, and some people choose to use this as their data storage, people who use a lot of spatial information. If you click on that item and scroll to the bottom, it will assign it its own URL.
Okay.
Wait, so you can't, sorry. So if you want to populate the content, how do you do that? I'm sorry, could you mention that once again, Kerry?
Okay, so you have a URL where your content lives, and then in your map, you have the ability here to just paste that location.
Right, but was there a way to actually populate the content in-house within this system, or is it always pointing to something?
It's better when it's pointing somewhere else. Truthfully, there are like Map Explorer where you can upload directly to that location. Like you can upload an image or a video right to the map. However, I find that it's much easier and much less machine power if you just link it to where it's already stored. So if you have a cloud storage somewhere else, use that. But just by using that URL, it will automatically populate your pop-up with that image.
So just to be clear, if you go to add, let's say, or maybe I'm jumping ahead, let's say you wanted to add a video or a photo or something, what would you do?
You're going to go to add from file.
Yeah.
If it's if it's a spreadsheet or some sort of geographic file, you're going to add from file. If you're going to add an image or a video, I would use map notes, and that is creating this is how I just created the stick pin. You can create a point, which looks like many different things. You can create a polygon, which is something you'll digitize or draw, or you can create a line. I'm just having you for this exercise, zoom in, create a point somewhere on the map, title it, give a description, and then link your content. So if you have that, like that Flickr address where you might have some imagery, just pop it in there and then it'll pull. Now, that said, it has to be publicly viewable. If it's something that you have that's restricted, it cannot map to that location. So you can use anywhere on the Earth's surface, you can create points, lines, and polygons through map notes.
So map notes is basically anything we want to add, we can do it that way through the URL option in it.
That's, yeah, if you're working with imagery content or video content or audio content, you're going to use map notes feature. If you're working with shape files, which are boundaries or census data or something from a database, you're going to add from file. Or if it's in a cloud storage, you're going to add from the web. Or if you're just very interested in what's already existing, you can browse the Living Atlas. So there's 5,000 layers already in ArcGIS. So I have you looking at the American Community Survey.
Sorry, how did you get to Living Atlas? I see it at the top, but did you add it?
Yeah, everything we're doing with the web mapping is under add. And so you have different options for getting data into your map. So the Living Atlas is a great source for already made content, and it's very high quality. The census data that's in ArcGIS is straight from the FactFinder website. So you're getting high quality data. You don't have to worry about questionable boundaries that somebody drew.
I hate those questionable boundaries.
Well, we should all question. Yeah, it's not on your map. No.
Kerry?
Yes.
Would you recommend if we don't have any saved images of our own for the art building, what would you recommend we do so we don't like run into any issues with copyright or whatnot? You know, what's your best suggestion for that?
That's an excellent question. So this does, yeah, so this is why having your own original content is wonderful, because you don't have to worry. I try to use things from Creative Commons. I use Photoshop, or I use some sort of photo preparation. I often embed the source before I upload it, so it's already credited. And you, yes, if you're producing something, publishing something, you need to make sure your permissions are in place prior to making them publicly viewable. For this exercise, I borrowed from the San Jose State University Gallery, so I figure as faculty, that's okay. But it is a concern, and what I usually do is I pre-embed that content onto my JPEG before I put it in content.
So I was able to give my image URL. I changed the image to being public.
Mhm.
And so now I'm pasting it, but I'm not seeing the image come up. Is there something that I may be doing wrong here? I pasted it to both image URL and image link URL.
That is correct.
Okay.
So it's publicly viewable. Sometimes there's just a tiny bit of lag, I've noticed, from the time that the content is generated and stored to the time that it shows up on the map. So try refreshing again in just like a minute or two. But
Where does that pop up? Because I'm not even using my own fingers. I'm just following you, Kerry, and anybody else is talking. So where does that pop up where it says make public?
so in the content folder, any of your content will be different classifications. If it has this little globe, that means it's been made publicly available. So for example, the art building image that I just showed you, I can change it. I go to share, and you can change the level of access. And this is true for most things, like Google is very much this way, Flickr is this way. So I change the public access. If it's shared publicly, then this URL will appear in the bottom right-hand corner. And so you can easily just copy it and then paste it where you need it. And if you go back to your map and click on that point you made, you can edit. And then where you edit, there's the opportunity to put that location. So the image will show up.
Got it. Thanks so much.
That will, I think for this group, using map notes and familiarizing yourself with map notes is going to be very helpful. And putting content up in the location. A different audience would find the layer information probably more useful in their work. Just to show you the quality of data, here's an educational attainment layer for San Jose. That map pin is still there, so you know where San Jose State is. But you can also change transparencies and things so that you can see the map underneath. But you can click anywhere on the choropleth and get actual data from the census. You can find data on population density, just all of the characteristics that are interesting that go along with whatever it is you're trying to convey. It gives you more context about place.
If I added a layer and then wanted to remove it, how would I do that?
So you can go to your details tab and
There we go. Okay.
And you can toggle things on and off, and you can also just right click and remove them.
Thank you. And is it ESRI that's vetting the data, the layers?
Yes, you can pay for access to this layers. This is something they've only released Living Atlas about 2 years ago. Prior to that, it was all proprietary. And I mean, the subscription models that go with this software and the information available run people on average $1,500 per year per person. The data packages were somewhere in the range of 10,000. So to have this stuff freely available is a real gem.
And how long do these licenses that we just have, how long do they last?
You get 12 months from today, but as long as you're affiliated with any educational institution from kindergarten to higher ed, freely available for your work.
So anybody off campus, I had a colleague that wanted to join tonight, and I said, oh, I don't think you can because we got access to this thing through the university. Could she have gotten it through her university? And
her university, certainly any institution.
Okay.
Education is entitled to access. I can provide you with the contacts at ESRI. Something to keep in mind is if you're a public user, if somebody had just wanted to join from outside a institutional affiliation, they could get a 21-day free trial. However, they would be able to use the mapping feature, but they wouldn't be able to story map. Some of the products, the higher level products, are not available for free trial. Okay, so everyone has been able to at least get exposure to the Living Atlas, and you've had exposure to adding a map node. I am going to show you how to add a layer from a CSV file and also from just the city of San Jose. And you'll find that there's just tons of useful information, things like what you do, Robin, waterways or water courses. There is pretty much every natural feature has been mapped. So if there is some unifying component of your map, look for it because it's freely available. So here where I think I have you do the city of San Jose, I have the boundary there. And so I have it zipped. If you're familiar with compressed file types, that's these shape files are what you're seeing. The geographic information files are actually 7 different layers files that are comprised together. So keep them zipped, don't unzip them, just use them as they come. Turn that off. So that package shows you the extent of the city of San Jose, and you can see it's very expansive, and it's pretty piecemealed. You can find like Campbell there, or Campbell, and some little donuts that exist. But this might be useful as you think about your San Jose in the postcards you receive. So that's available on the San Jose portal, which I provided the link in the instructions. And then I also have you adding a CSV file. And then the CSV file just had a few more point locations of buildings on campus.
Sorry, I don't know all the CSV, what is that? I don't know the language you're speaking.
Yes, that's a common file type. So when you're working with spreadsheet data, like a Google Sheet or an Excel sheet, instead of saving it as Excel, which is a proprietary product, if you export it to what's called a comma separated value, in essence, it's readable across all. It can be read by a Microsoft Word, it can be read by mapping software, it can be read by Google Sheets or Excel. So it's just a unified file type for primarily numeric data. So anything that would be a spreadsheet.
And I forget, should we select the generalized features or the keep original when we're importing?
Generalized features. That would be if there's some computational. This data is pretty basic, but yes.
So weird. So the Santa Clara Fairgrounds is not technically part of San Jose.
So Rhonda, where was this erosion layer? I just saw you put it. So
Yeah, it was on the browse living atlas layers. There's an erosion layer. It's really pretty, as you might imagine, around the bay.
So it was under add or
Yeah,
under,
if you go into add and then browse living atlas layers,
yeah.
it's kind of a, I don't know, maybe 20 down, but it's kind of a
Oh.
brown map. You can probably just search for it too. Erosion. Yeah. USA soils erodibility factor. There's an erosion class that looks gorgeous too.
Oh yeah. That's so cool. Oh my God, that now.
And you can click anywhere and get actually, very useful data. This was probably created, this was created by ESRI, but probably in partnership with the USDA or some sort of agency.
Now, does that keep up with time? Like if we have rains and get a lot more erosion because the fires and stuff, does this automatically keep up with everything?
Yeah, it'll pull, this one was updated 10/21. So, within the week, these things are meant to pull from all the portals directly.
Higher values are more.
Some other things, but I'm not going to go there tonight, but.
So if they're more susceptible to erosion, that means they don't have plantings and things on them, or how does one interpret this language there?
So that's a good question. So really that's where the analyst is helpful because, having a lot of knowledge about a lot of disciplines. So if it's highly erodible, then you want to make sure you're planting so that you're keeping the soil intact so it doesn't run off. But if it's a low erodibility factor, it's probably very flat and it might already have some sort of vegetation on top.
I love listening to you. I just don't think the way you do, so it's great. Yeah.
I'm having trouble downloading the zip file without, my Mac keeps downloading it as like a folder, not it like as an unzipped. Do you have any suggestions?
Just go ahead and compress it, right click and compress it.
Okay. How do you right click on a Mac again?
Oh, I do 2 fingers.
Huh? Oh, 2 fingers? Okay, thank you.
Could you do control or command click too?
Yeah, that's what I do.
I am a Mac user and I have always been a Mac user. This program only because of ArcGIS Online is available to Mac users. The desktop version, which is far more advanced in capabilities, is PC only. So the university has some virtual machines. If you decide that you get into mapping for a project and you need more advanced power, we can get you access to the virtual machines.
Oh, wow.
What are you looking at, Daniel, and oh wowing?
Oh, I'm just trying to get the import layer from that file. So.
Oh yeah.
So when I was looking for the erosion one that Rhonda was talking about, I grabbed the erosion class, the USA soils erosion class, and layered it on top of the erodibility factor. So it moved it from just being those shades of brown to bringing in oranges and reds and greens.
Like just as, just aesthetically, it's so interesting.
I know. Now you're talking.
We're like, oh, and it brings in oranges and green.
Yeah.
Like the data doesn't.
Beautiful data is beautiful.
Yeah, I got
anything. It can be a work of art. So. Okay.
How do we know it's staying? I mean, how do you know it's staying in wherever you're putting these things in? Oh, and the access is by share, right?
You can save your map right next to share. You can save it and then it'll put it in content for you. You name it, you save it, and then you can share it. What's great is that if you have a collaborator, you can invite them. They can be working at the same time, like a Google Doc. And
Oh, so you have to save it. It goes immediately to content. Then how do you get that one content piece public? Sorry.
so if you go to your home, the content will be there, and then you'll be able to find your maps. Here's a web map I made. You can go back to that map and then you can click on it, you can share it, you can come back to it later, you can do whatever you need to do with it, but
Okay.
it updates pretty frequently.
But you do have to share it. There's nothing where everything everybody's made is there.
Well, it depends. If you want to do something collaborative, I recommend you work in an organization, like you just work among a few people. But if you share it with everybody in the public, then they have access to it. They can't necessarily edit it, but they'll be able to see it just the way you left it.
Robin, there is a browse feature when you go into the home page. Before I logged in, I was just browsing all the maps. I don't know if it just pulls up randomly or the most recently added, but kind of interesting to see.
Where is that browse feature? I don't see that. Oh, just in the map in general. You're just
Yeah, it was before I logged in. Maybe gallery?
Oh, gallery, this is things that people from San Jose State will have put up.
Yeah.
So somebody else working at the university or in our institution and put like a boundaries of counties and things so you have access to them. I wouldn't say there's a lot of compelling mapping happening at San Jose State until now, of course.
Yeah.
But that's going to change.
This workshop.
Tonight's the night.
I'm curious, is this the sort of thing, say, if we're using this during COVID and our students are spread kind of far, are they able to work on the collaborative mapping aspects of where they're at so that they can see each other's?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah, you can ask Jennifer for email logins for every one of your students, and then they can map. I mean, I have students that are in Southeast Asia. I have students in, the back east with their parent. There's just an interesting way that we can all work together. Now, scale becomes an issue. You got to zoom way out sometimes.
So how do you do that? Sorry, can you say that once again? Because that was a good question. I didn't quite get it the first time.
Yeah, so my understanding of the question is, can you have your students from all over working on the same collaborative map? And yes, the answer is yes, as long as everybody has an account with ArcGIS Online. So you can ask Jennifer Red for that and she'll provide that.
Cool. So if they're doing, say, like some kind of field observation or something around their house, or maybe storing the landscape around their house, they can all have them all in the shared map and see what each other are doing.
Absolutely.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, it's really cool. And what's really fun, since you're talking about taking it around their neighborhood, this is a product we're not going to talk about tonight, but Survey 123, they can take their smartphones, go in their neighborhood, take pictures, and as long as they have location on, those pictures are geo-referenced and they can come right in as a data layer.
Oh, that's wonderful. And will they have a shared data layer, or will they, like, can they all be on the same sort of frequency or signal?
You can have them all on the same base map.
Okay.
And so in the same collaborative space, but they'll have their own layer for their own user. So they'll each be, compiling their own field data, if you will. Survey 123 is awesome. They can put notes in with their photographs. They can put sound clips. They can really get a sense of place and build a library. Yeah, that's a whole different workshop.
Well, let me know if you teach it.
Yeah.
This is reminding me a little bit of iNaturalist. Like that.
It's similar.
Is that using pretty similar frameworks?
That's much more basic than the options you would have here. But
Oh, okay.
yeah. Okay, so has everyone been able to accomplish finding layers, uploading some data, and creating points, and also bringing that spreadsheet in? Okay, so why don't we move on to the next segment? Let me go ahead and jump back to the slides so I can. Okay. So part 3 is really why you're here tonight, and that is for the purpose of story mapping. So because you've created a web map now, that's something that you can put into a story. Like I said, this is a generally kind of a new feature. It's grown in popularity. There's story map contests. And I like to think of it as like revisiting the old National Geographics, which I used to love because I'm a pre-internet Gen Xer. And so I grew up in this little nowhere place, and National Geographic was a window into like anything of interest. That was not where I was living. And the imagery is compelling, and the writing was very, that was interesting and engaging. And I like to think that story maps are sort of the next generation, except that you don't have a publishing process. So this is something that's available, it's democratized to everyone who has access to these tools. Google used to have a product very similar to this. It was called Tour Builder, never gained in popularity, and I don't know why. This was the award winner, the ESRI award winner for last year. It's very, very compelling. It gives background to people who might not know anything about Bangladesh and the number of Rohingya refugees who are in serious strife. Most of them are children. About half the population is children. So you get this really interesting look at the place, not just from aerial photos, but from on the ground photos. There are interviews with the people who are living there, but also just a lot of really clear data that students particularly can use in their research reports, and just communicates information that maybe our mainstream media and secondary sources are not taking time to emphasize. The maps are very clear, they change as you scroll through. And this is a story map. So that's different than a web map. A web map is great because that's a location where you can find information, but a story map has narratives, it has data, it has imagery, it's telling the whole picture, and in a lot of different ways. So I've put this in, you're welcome to look at this story map winner and a lot of others that are on the ESRI site, but even San Jose State has gotten on board and is doing a story map competition this year. So I like to think of story maps as sort of the last piece of the puzzle. First is to gather data, and then I use the map feature, the web maps, to look for patterns, clusters, outliers. And then in those patterns or in those outliers, that's where the stories lie. So as a social scientist, I like to look at the data before I get into the story. And then as just somebody who's a creative person, then I like to think about how to tell the story and communicate that visually. So as you're doing any sort of visual work in mapping, you create a storyboard, you figure out what key writing and quotes you're going to use from the narratives or the interviews. And then you list out the media and the graphics. It's very helpful to have a graphic design advice in terms of how the content is flowing and what color choices, if you want illustrations, and then choose the kinds of maps you need accordingly. I find that stories like documentaries are better if they're specific. Like story maps are not great if they're excessively long or they're vague. People want to know what is happening. And so use your 1,000 words or 1,500 words well. Otherwise, the viewer gets scroll fatigue and is just going to go off the page. So this product, the story map product, lives under the grid of products up here on your homepage, and it's down in the lower left. You should all have access to this feature. And for the first part of this little exercise, I'm just going to have you complete a template version, because that way you get all the content in, and then the rest of the evening you're going to create your own. Pretty much everything you need to know about doing a story map is that it's on the plus icon. That's how you add content, maps, images, and media. So I'm going to let you do that now. And you can ask questions.
So the story, once it's kind of built out, kind of, you know, scrolls like a website or something. Once we have, yeah, is how do you kind of integrate back into, or is that, am I not looking?
So how do you integrate back into your maps?
Yes.
So you would you would go back to the home page and then click into map.
Got it.
Once you embed a map into your story map, that will stay, it will not change. So if you update your map outside of the story map, you'll have to republish things.
So Kerry, can we do the same thing, possibly go through as if we're and just create sort of on the fly something?
Sure. So let's create a new story map. And this first exercise is like purely just getting familiar. Click on new story. There are templates that you can use, a quick start, sidecar, guided map, and whatnot. Starting from scratch though is a good way to get used to it. So let's see, title. You can pick an image. And then really everything you need is here under the add content block. So maybe you have some, you know, basic text, or maybe you want to add some sort of quote, and then pick a different. I like the button feature, and I'll talk about that in the next part, but like if you have a submission link, like if I wanted you to submit your story map, you can put the link right here, and then there's a button right on your story map so that people can do that. And most importantly, you can embed one of your maps that you've made. So here was the map that I made for exercise 2, and you can just go ahead and embed it right into your story map. So
How did you find that, Kerry? Sorry, the map
everything
thing.
is here under the add button, and then
Right.
you can choose the type of media, or you can choose the type of text or function.
So you added the map, you went to map,
Mhm.
and oh, okay. So it it just has all the ones that you've created appear.
That's correct. So you have to do that web mapping exercise before you can do a story map. So making a story map is actually a very easy, but you know, making a predefined story map is very easy. It's really a couple of steps, and it's meant to be easy. Now you can get down a rabbit hole of infinite changes, color choices, how you want your maps to look, how many maps you want. And so we'll go a little bit more advanced now, but I wanted everyone to at least find the add content and where the story maps were. Everybody's been able to do that, I presume? Okay, I'm seeing nodding heads, that's good. Okay, let's go back and continue along. So you probably have a tremendous amount of content from the portfolios that you've created over your lifetime. So consider what you have and consider the many applications of GIS to your work. And I found a couple of really good samples depending which way you want to take something like this. If you're trying to engage an audience or do some advocacy work, I really like the map I showed you already. There's some wonderful uses as a teaching tool. So just demonstrating what's available. Just having, this one was the only one I found that a person created a portfolio or a project narrative out of some of the work. And then really, I only found one example of art exhibition using a story map. So it's certainly something that's underutilized in that way. And thinking about the project as I understand, like the San Jose story map and the postcard project, of all the tools, I would say that the Explorer map tool is very handy. Give you some sort of curated content that appears like this, but really thinking of GIS or Geographic Information Systems as a platform and not just as a tool of making maps is key. So thinking about the data storage and the collaboration and the analytics, because you can do things, for example, like a query or a SQL query of say, show me all of the points within a mile of campus, or you can start asking questions of your data that you can't do in other platforms. And also you can start looking at temporal elements and how things change over time. It also works really well with other tools to automate visualization. So something as simple as creating a Google form for submissions. So to take pictures of either side, immediately goes into a database that you've created in Google Sheets. You can create a geocode, use the Google API geocoder. It will take the addresses and then put the latitude and longitude. It will auto upload them into your ArcGIS Online web map. And then you control the story in the story map. So something is like, here's a piece of qualitative data, right? Here's a postcard. And I just found these on the library. These are archived photos on scans of postcards in the library's online site. And I added content. So if you think about what kinds of locational information is available just on a postcard, yes, there's the address and place names, but there's a lot more. There's dates, so there's a spatial and a temporal element. There's the roles and the people involved, looking into who that belongs to. And then general tone and tenor. So as a qualitative researcher, I'm very interested in not just what people say, but how they say it and what that says about what was happening at that time. If I was to map this, I'd include like a symphonic recording from the SJSU Symphony to really give sort of a larger soundscape to that experience. And what makes mapping different from history or geography different from history is adding the geotags, so the latitude and longitude. But what all social scientists particularly are interested in is how you can slice and dice the data. So I would say the more categorization you can do, adding columns about things like, is this community, is this an art, like starting to not just take the content in, but categorize the content will allow you powerful analytics to attribute later. So there's really so much spatial information that's embedded in text, and people don't realize that. So that's one way to look and approach a project like this. Also having just good Photoshop skills, things like image cleaning and knowing what resolutions to use and thinking about thumbnails and adding copyrights, those are helpful skills. As you bring all of this into your content page and then you have that ability then to easily input it into your map. So I created just a simple, and what I think you would be able to accomplish tonight in working with the story map feature is here just a very simple map with the postcards and the postcard content and a little bit about the project that I was able to find on the web. And so you can see how having imagery, having narratives, having a submission button, having an embedded map with your actual data collected so far is a great way to then increase participation by others. So they can see as they submit by the next day that their submission is on the map as well. So that tends to be really fun for engagement. Then as you become more advanced from using a simple template, consider designing your own template. So many of you know San Jose State has a large communications department. They've put out a document that tells you not only how to tell a story, which I have a little problem with, but what font to use, what colors to use, what is accessible in terms of the viewer, and of course our logo. Not that your projects are San Jose specific, but the question did come up if you were using it for a class, creating a Spartan theme would be in line. And even though we don't have the exact same options in ArcGIS, it's somewhat limited. It doesn't have like the Spartan font, but you can get very, very close with the font packages and color options. So I was able to create most of the same look. And for those of you who are like me, who are very color challenged because I just get indecisive, Professor Cindy Brewer of Penn State is probably the most famous cartographer working today. And she's created this super helpful tool to choose colors for projection, for print, for color blindness, for single hue ramps or multi-hue ramps. This is my go-to tool for color choice. And that could be useful for more than just cartography. And I say this before I break so that you can help, so you can start asking me questions about your own content. I want to make a plug for anybody, not just students, who wants to participate. It says student, but we're open to anyone. GIS Day is coming up. That's a world celebrated Geographic Information System holiday, if you will. And we are doing a story map competition for cash prizes. And if your students are interested, if you're interested, please submit at the link below. And then we're gonna announce the winners. We're gonna have a special MIT guest speaker talking about election data and showing his visualizations, and then we'll announce the winners of the competition. Okay, so those are some thoughts on creating a story map. Again, being organized is a good start, and thinking about the content you already have and identifying the content you need. So the next 30, 40 minutes is available to you to pull some of your own content and try it out yourself. And so I'm here for questions. And you can share your screen and I'll help you walk through things as well.
Thank you, Kerry. For the contest, is the submission format this link that we would then share?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just once you publish your story map, it'll give you a URL, a link, and you just plop it in. This goes to a Google form where you submit.
Amazing, thank you. And did you publish publicly your story map that you made?
I think I did. I'll put it in the chat. It's very simple. I was just putting those few cards that I created.
Those are great. And you found those at our library?
MLK Library, lots of good stuff.
Wonderful.
Wish my students knew it existed.
I have a question. Can you hear me well? I think my internet's a little
Yes.
unstable. Yeah, is it possible to add? Thank you for the workshop. It was really really nice. Is it possible to add like masks, like image masks, or like in Photoshop, like a layer mask?
Not well, just kind of static images where we're at. Although there are other platforms that are amazing. They require they have much less amenities, if you will. They're not as hosted, but there are ways to do it. Just ArcGIS in terms of this particular, where it is at today, not good. However, when I did something somewhat related, where I did that interactive story map and I show the front of the postcard, I also have it so that you toggle to the back so that you can see both sides instead.
What was the application that you were thinking of?
Yeah, what?
Oh, so I have I have the erosion map and the San Jose city limits, and I thought it'd be cool if you could make the erosion map only appear within the San Jose city limits.
Yes, you can. Okay, so really good question. So that's a geoprocessing option called CLIP. So what I would suggest is if you want stuff that's nice and tidy, it also decreases your file size. So there are a lot of geoprocessing tools. There are also a lot of analytics tools that I'm not demonstrating tonight. But those, again, kind of like a separate workshop for doing the processing work. But I would suggest the desktop version anyway. Like the desktop version of the software makes all of those things much, much easier. Running these, like clipping a whole national layer of soil erosion, for example, takes quite a long time. And doing it through the cloud is an arduous process for the computing. However, if you have the desktop version, which also comes with this same license that you have, you can just whip it out.
And does the
Cool, thank you.
desktop version then also kind of plug back into the online so it's viewable through a browser?
Yeah, so everything that you do in the desktop version, you just upload right into your content and then it becomes an online product. I mean, the capabilities are immense depending on the application. You can add directionality, you can add time series, you can start looking at things in 3 dimensions versus 2 dimensions.
And the story map that you made, which is kind of like a format that I'm a little bit more familiar with, where you can kind of scroll through the tags and you have the map on the kind of right hand side. Yeah, thank you. What do I add in order to be able to make that?
This is the tour. So this is actually a template. So when I created the story, I used the option at the bottom, which was tour builder or tour explorer. And I just liked cartographically the way it displayed, and like my thumbnails my links seem to not be working, but I like the way it's displayed imagery, content, and the map itself.
Yeah.
It really is going to be a function of how many points you're working with.
Yeah.
If you're going to be looking at the whole of San Jose and you end up with 1,000 points, for example, you're going to want the map by itself because it's going to have so much information, it would be too much for the reader.
But that's like the create a map tour. That's that block.
Yeah, it was the option, the template option of Explorer. Here, I'll find that one for you.
I see. Yeah. So there's the guided, right? Like, which would do the same thing in order of whatever, in a sequential order. And then that is an Explorer where you can kind of click on, as a user, click on whatever, and it will scroll through the.
Yes, I like Explorer in that the user gets to define where to go, and some of the other mapping, the author decides what route the viewer is taking. Mm-hmm. So I am much more like on the user end, having freedom. I use this one, Rhonda.
Yeah.
But like I said, most people will choose the guided map tour. This is new. This was only released on September 30th, to give you a sense of how recent the content, the framework is.
So yeah, if you started, go ahead, Rhonda, sorry.
No, I'm just saying, I was just going to say it shows up when you try to add it as a block content into another map, it shows up as beta. So I don't know if that's why it's having problems pulling up your images, but it's such a wonderful UI. Anyway, what were you going to say, Robin?
Oh, if you're going from scratch, can you still pick Explore Map Tour, that particular version? Okay.
No, you have to make a lot of choices up front with ArcGIS. I mean, at this point, it's not a program that you want to change halfway through. So you want to be really aware of like how you've storyboarded and what you want to use. I mean, you can always delete things. It's very easy to delete and remove things, but to change your whole concept midstream it's not seamless.
Is that what you were asking? Robin, if you go into that little plus button in the story map, it's an option. It's like a tour, I think it says. Let me save.
The swipe feature is really cool too, for those of you who want to kind of look at, if you have imagery from historic aerials, for example, and then you have a current picture, the swipe feature is really fun because you can see changes on the ground surface. Or if it's, I suppose if it's a land-based photo, you could do it as well. Yeah, so there's map tour, but once you're already in, you can't do the explore.
Finally, when you publish, that just lands in your content
Mhm.
and then share. Okay. Kerry, thank you so much. I am ashamed to admit I have another Zoom meeting, but I will follow the recording to see what I missed. You gave a great workshop. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye, Robin.
Bye, guys. Have fun.
Bye, Robin. Have a good night.
Okay, good.
Bye, Sabrina.
Bye, Sabrina.
So I just want to confirm something. So as I'm doing that map piece and I'm putting my map points down and I'm adding an image, am I needing to reload those images over in the story map, or does all of that flow through when I pull it?
It will all come in.
Awesome.
Yes.
And are there any limitations when we're grabbing something that's out on the internet? So if we have, like, I have an artist page on Facebook that's public. If I grab the URL of that location within Facebook, is the mapping system capable of finding that image?
It should be. Now, if that image is tied to other content, like comments on below, it won't know what to pull.
Ah, okay.
It has to be, so that's why a Flickr or some sort of image specific without any of the chatter will pull directly. I really do like the storage capabilities in ArcGIS. Now it's a hassle if you already have like 1,000 photos somewhere else, then of course that's a problem. One thing though, if they're on your phone, if you have an iPhone and they're in your photo gallery, they're already geotagged if you have your location services on.
Right.
They already come with latitude and longitude. So you can upload those directly as files. All those images can come in as a file.
Okay.
They already know where to put it.
Cool.
Thanks, Alicia. Bye.
So if I've created, a map and created stick pins and imported images associated with those pins, what I'm looking at now is that kind of scrollable map. Is there a way to import a map and kind of automate that that tour, or are they separate?
The tour is linked to as the viewer is scrolling down.
Yeah.
So as the viewer is seeing one point and then scrolls down, it will automatically take them to the next location on your tour. In terms of automating like a video, do you mean like a fly through or something?
No, so let me Let me just confirm before I ask a very dumb question. But I think I've imported the map that we made in step 1. I'm creating I've created like a little 3-point tour in the tour map. Is there a way that if I had a map that I had created with pins that I could drag that into a tour function within the story?
Embed a different map or this? I'm sorry, I'm a
Hold
little.
on. Let me just
Go ahead and share your screen. I'll take a
yeah.
look.
I'm now in. Oh, did I lose my changes?
Hi, Kevin. Thanks for joining.
Okay. Publish. Okay, there we go. All right, so so this is the map that I made in kind of part 1, and then I just made this little tour, right? So with these pins, is there a way that if I had more of these kind of stick pins that I could automate, like pull from a map that I created and automate this tour? Do you know?
No, you would have to, no, they don't link between each other well. If it's all on one map, if it's all on the same original map, then you have more options. But if you create them in 2 different, no,
Yeah,
they don't talk well.
Okay.
Good to know. Bye, Felix. Thanks.
This is great. This has been so wonderful.
Thank you.
And kind of so eye-opening for a lot of reasons, both on the kind of design side, but also what I found particularly interesting were the kind of categories that you were pulling from, especially the postcard, things like tonality or location, or all of these like various data points. You know, as an artist, we kind of think like holistically in some cases, but kind of getting super granular about that, I find to be a very fascinating approach. And so such a different, just such a different lens.
And I always appreciate hearing and seeing what people in totally different disciplines create with the same tools that I've been using for 2 decades, seriously, 2 decades. And, it just blows my mind because I just think of like, okay, you need this coding, you need, you just run the same steps over and over again. So it's really refreshing. Frankly, it's super refreshing to see new users with new ideas. Much appreciated.
Yes, I'm always, never surprised at all of the ways that students, can like break or break a tool, or I think that is the most interesting part of some of teaching too. And also, the way that like an artist would be like, oh, that would find features in something that otherwise could be considered a bug. So.
Yeah, you found erosion beautiful. It's not something that typically I get excited about that way, but I have to say no one in this workshop has said, I don't know how to get here. I don't know how I did this. And so applause to everyone.
Or if they did, they weren't telling us about it. Is there a way to, so now I'm thinking kind of like about the San Jose Story Map project. Is there a way to import from like a CSV file into this kind of the tour feature?
Yes. So that's what I was sort of touched on, is that you want to create an automated process. You do not want to be doing this on a daily, weekly, whatever, manual, anything. You'll find just QA/QCing the map. You'll see something that's way outside the city of San Jose, and then you'll ask the question, is that correct or not correct? You'll go back to the spreadsheet. But yes, you're going to write a script so that it pulls from the CSV file automatically into the map and then refresh. All you do is refresh.
Mhm.
And I put my worksheet, I put my spreadsheet there for you. But again, the categorization is really helpful because then, like I said, when you're in your web map, you can start doing SQL questions like, I want to know everybody who talked about or had negative feelings,
Mhm, mhm.
and then start deciding, is it a place-based thing or was it something else?
And can you pull in the images from a CSV file?
Yep.
And
I linked my images to the CSV file, so through URL you can do that.
so it's a URL. One of the things that's like the kind of major stumbling block we're running into on the back end is like how do we get those hard links to URLs, right? Do we have folks kind of upload somewhere else, or are we, so
Have you?
that's,
So I created a Google form, and you can upload imagery to the Google, so it'll go right to a drive. And then
yeah.
ideally then it comes with the URL. So then it automatically populates the spreadsheet, which should automatically populate your map, but a lot of
Yeah.
ifs.
What we've been running into is that I think the link that's created from the form field is actually not a hard link. It's this soft kind of preview link, and so it doesn't really show up in our database in the right way. But
That's
bye, Daniel.
Thanks so much for the workshop.
Oh, I'm glad you were able to get everything working.
So I'm gonna I think I'm running into my bandwidth for Zoom. It's been I'm gonna stop the recording.